I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in front of a blank sheet of paper. It was supposed to be the start of something big, something I really cared about. It was my dream, my project, something I wanted to pour my whole heart into. But I couldn't move. My hands were shaking. My mind was completely blank. Not because I didn't know what to do, I knew very well, but that fear, that paralyzing fear of messing it up, of failing, of embarrassing myself, it was stronger than me. In the end, I crumpled up that sheet and threw it in the bin. And with it, a piece of my dream. Back then, I thought I was just weak, that I wasn't good for anything, that I simply wasn't good enough. Today, I know I was wrong. I wasn't weak, I wasn't alone, and I'm not alone. That fear I felt back then, the fear of failure, is completely normal. And I'll admit, I still feel it today. You might think that people who create videos, write books, or stand on stage aren't afraid of anything. But believe me, that's not the case. Every one of us has our fears. The only difference is how we face them. And you know what? It's not just my feeling. There are numbers for it. Hard data. Did you know that the fear of failure is a much more common cause of procrastination than simple laziness? That according to some studies, up to 70% of people regularly avoid challenges just because they're afraid of failing? That means 7 out of 10 people you know might be wasting their potential, their dreams, right now, just because of fear. And that's crazy, isn't it? But I have good news for you. The fear of failure doesn't have to be your master. It doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to define your life. You can learn how to understand it, how to accept it, and even how to turn it into your greatest strength, into fuel that will drive you forward. And that's exactly what this video is about. I'm not going to tell you to just stop being afraid. That would be silly and ineffective. Instead, I'll show you specific science-backed techniques and strategies that will help you change your relationship with fear and unlock your true potential. So, if you're ready, let's dive in. So, the fear of failure. We already know it's common, that almost everyone feels it, and that it can have a huge impact on our lives. But why? Why does it even exist? Why does it paralyze us so much? To understand this, we need to look deeper into our brains, and even deeper into our past. Imagine our ancestors who lived in the wild tens of thousands of years ago. They were constantly exposed to danger. Wild animals, hostile tribes, lack of food, extreme weather, life was a struggle for survival, and in this struggle, failure was often fatal. If a hunter failed to catch prey, his family starved. If someone couldn't defend themselves against a predator, they became its prey. If someone made a mistake finding shelter, they could freeze. Therefore, a very strong mechanism developed in our brains to protect us from failure: fear. The fear of failure was essentially the fear of death. It was an alarm that went off at every potential threat, meant to force us into action, to fight, to flee, or to freeze to become invisible to predators. And here we come to the amygdala. It's a small, almond-shaped part of the brain that acts sort of like our fear center. The amygdala is constantly on alert, scanning the environment for potential threats. And when it detects a threat, like the possibility of failure, it sounds the alarm, literally. In a fraction of a second, it sends a signal to other parts of the brain and the entire body, triggering a cascade of reactions known as the stress response. Your heart starts beating faster, your breathing quickens, muscles tense up, pupils dilate. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released into your bloodstream. All of this is meant to prepare you for action: fight, flight, or freeze. It's an automatic, instinctive reaction that you can't consciously control, and that's important to realize. Those physical and emotional symptoms you feel when you're afraid, that's not your fault. It's not your weakness. It's biology. It's your brain trying to protect you. The problem is, the amygdala doesn't distinguish between a real threat to life and just failure at work, school, or in a relationship. To it, it's all the same: a threat. And so it reacts just as strongly, even when it's something that doesn't actually endanger our lives. Let's look closer at the reaction we mentioned: fight, flight, or freeze. These three reactions, fight, flight, or freeze, are the fundamental ways we respond to danger, and they manifest in our modern lives too, even though we're no longer fighting wild beasts. Fight. In a threatening situation, some people stand their ground. In a modern context, this might mean perfectionism, trying to have everything absolutely under control to prevent any mistakes. It can also be aggression, anger, or competitiveness, trying to beat the competition or prove we're better. Flight. Other people try to avoid danger. In modern life, this manifests as avoiding challenges, putting off tasks, procrastination, or escaping into fantasy worlds, social media, or other activities that allow us to forget our worries. Freeze. And the third reaction is freezing. When we feel completely paralyzed by fear, we can't move, we can't think, we can't act. In modern life, this manifests as an inability to make decisions, a feeling of being stuck, or complete shutdown and apathy. Think about yourself now. Which of these three reactions is most characteristic of you? Are you more of a fighter, a flighter, or a freezer? When you realize how your brain reacts to fear, you can start to understand why you behave the way you do, why you procrastinate, why you avoid challenges, why you strive for perfection. It's not because you're lazy, incompetent, or weak. It's because your brain is trying to protect you, albeit in a somewhat clumsy and exaggerated way. But don't worry. Just because the fear of failure is deeply rooted in our biology doesn't mean we're condemned to be its slaves. It just means we need to understand how it works and learn to work with it. And that's exactly what the next part of this video will be about. We'll show you specific techniques and strategies to not only overcome the fear of failure, but even turn it into your greatest strength. All right, now that we understand where our fear of failure comes from and how it works on a biological level, let's look at some misconceptions we have about failure. Because it's precisely these beliefs, these distorted views, that often feed our fear and hinder our growth. The first and biggest myth is that failure is something catastrophic, something that will definitively destroy us, something we'll never recover from. If I don't succeed at this, my life is over. If I fail, everyone will judge me. Do you recognize these thoughts? They're very common, but they are absolutely untrue. The truth is, failure is part of life. It's something everyone experiences. No one, absolutely no one, avoids failure. And what's more, failure is an essential part of learning and growth. Without failures, we wouldn't move anywhere. We'd stay stuck in place, without the possibility of improving and developing our potential. Imagine a small child learning to walk. They fall dozens, maybe hundreds of times. But do they see it as the end of the world? No. They get up and try again, and again, and again, until one day they stand up and take their first step, and then another, and another. If the child gave up after the first fall, they would never learn to walk. And it's exactly the same with us and our failures. Every fall, every failure, every mistake teaches us something. It gives us feedback. It shows us what doesn't work, what we can do differently next time, where we can improve. So, next time something doesn't work out for you, don't mourn. Don't give up. Don't panic. Instead, stop and think. What can I learn from this situation? What is this failure showing me? How can I use this experience to my advantage? The second big myth is that failure is proof of our incompetence, our inadequacy, our personal worth. If I failed, it means I'm incompetent, stupid, weak. This is a very dangerous thought trap that can completely paralyze us. There is a fundamental difference between an unsuccessful attempt and personal failure. Just because something doesn't work out for you doesn't mean you failed as a person. It just means that that specific attempt didn't succeed. Maybe you chose the wrong strategy. Maybe you didn't have enough information. Maybe you weren't having your day. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. But that says nothing about your value as a human being. That is unchanging, no matter how many times something doesn't work out for you. Imagine you're baking a cake, and the cake burns. Does that mean you're a bad baker? Maybe, maybe not. But it certainly doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that specific cake burned. Next time, you'll set a lower temperature or check it more often. And maybe you'll bake the best cake in the world, but your value as a person hasn't changed, neither with the burnt cake nor with the perfect one. And the third myth we need to debunk is the idea that successful people are some kind of superheroes who aren't afraid of anything and who never fail. That they have some secret recipe for success that guarantees they'll always succeed. That is, of course, complete nonsense. Look at Thomas Edison. Before he invented the light bulb, he reportedly made thousands of unsuccessful attempts. When asked about it, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, was rejected by 12 publishers before her book was finally published. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, didn't make the basketball team in high school. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job because she was allegedly unfit for television. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school 3 times. These people, and many others, achieved success not despite their failures, but because of them. They learned from their mistakes, didn't give up, and eventually reached their goals. And you can do exactly the same. So, next time something doesn't work out for you, remember these people. Remember that failure is not the end of the world, that it's not proof of your incompetence, and that even the most successful people in the world have experienced countless failures. And most importantly, remember that every failure is an opportunity for learning and growth. It's a chance to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And that, after all, is the greatest superpower you can gain. So, we already know where our fear comes from, how it works in our brain and body, and what misconceptions convince us about it. And now comes the most important part. Now we'll look at what to do about it. How to turn the fear that has paralyzed us for so long into something useful. How to turn it into a superpower. I won't promise you any magic pills or instant solutions, because nothing like that exists. Overcoming the fear of failure is a process. It's a journey, but it's a journey you can manage. And on this journey, I'll offer you several proven tools, techniques, and strategies that will help you. Some are based on scientific research, others on the experiences of successful people, and some even on my own falls and victories. So, let's get to it. The first and fundamental strategy we'll introduce is the growth mindset. This concept, popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck from Stanford University, is literally a revolution in how we perceive ourselves, our abilities, and our potential. Dweck distinguishes between 2 basic types of mindset: fixed mindset and growth mindset. People with a fixed mindset believe that their intelligence, talent, and abilities are innate and unchangeable. They are like some given quantity that can't be changed. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, supposedly nothing can be done about it. You can recognize manifestations of fixed thinking in sentences like, "I don't have the knack for this. I'll never be good at math. I'm just like that." On the other hand, people with a growth mindset believe that they can develop their abilities and intelligence through learning, effort, persistence, and overcoming obstacles. They perceive their brain as a muscle that can be trained and strengthened. And most importantly, they perceive failure not as proof of their incompetence, but as an opportunity for learning and growth. And now you might be thinking, that sounds nice, but how do I do it? How do I change my mindset? It's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But it is possible, and it starts by becoming aware of your thoughts. Specifically, those thoughts that run through your head when you face a challenge, when something doesn't go well for you, or when you're considering something new. See the difference? Fixed mindset thoughts are defeatist, discouraging, and take away your power. Growth mindset thoughts are encouraging, motivating, and give you hope. So, your task is, become detectives of your own thoughts. Notice them, write them down, and then consciously reframe them. Replace those negative, limiting thoughts with positive, growth-oriented ones. And believe me, this isn't just some empty positive thinking. It's based on neuroscience. Our brain is incredibly plastic. It's constantly changing, adapting, creating new connections. And the more we learn and overcome obstacles, the stronger and more efficient these connections become. So, yes, you can change. You can improve, you can learn new things, and you can turn the fear of failure into your ally. The second very effective technique I'd like to introduce is fear setting. This technique was developed and popularized by Tim Ferriss, author of the bestseller The 4-Hour Workweek, and it's essentially an anti-procrastination and anti-fear tool that helps you gain clarity and control over your worries. Fear setting is basically a very simple process consisting of 3 steps. Take a piece of paper and a pen, or open a new document on your computer, and let's get started. The first step is called define. In this step, you'll define in detail your worst fears associated with the specific situation or goal you're facing. What specifically are you afraid of? What's the worst that can happen if you try, insert goal, task, and fail? Be as specific as possible. Don't just write, "I'll fail." Write, "I'll fail the presentation in front of the whole company and embarrass myself." Or, "I won't pass the exam and I'll get kicked out of school." Or, "I won't get the job and I'll have to stay in the one I hate." Now, for each of these fears, ask yourself 2 questions. 1. What is the probability that this will actually happen? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is very unlikely and 10 is almost certain. 2. What would be the impact of this event on your life if it actually happened? Again, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is minimal impact and 10 is catastrophic impact. The second step is called prevent. Now, think about what you can do to reduce the probability that the worst-case scenarios will happen. What preventive measures can you take? For example, if you're afraid of failing a presentation, you can prepare thoroughly, practice in front of a mirror or friends, ask for feedback, prepare backup solutions for technical problems, etc. Write down everything that comes to mind. And the third step is called repair. Now, think about what you can do to minimize the impact of the worst-case scenarios if they were to happen anyway. If you were to fail the presentation after all, what could you do? You could apologize, take it with humor, learn from it, and prepare better for the next opportunity. If you didn't pass the exam, you could retake it, ask for tutoring, or consider other study options. Write down all possible solutions. And that's it. When you go through this process, you'll find that most of your fears are either unlikely or manageable. That even if the worst-case scenario happened, it's not the end of the world. That you have a plan to prevent it, and you have a plan to fix it if it does happen, and that will give you a huge sense of control and peace. I'll tell you an example of how I used fear setting myself. Some time ago, I was supposed to speak at a conference. I was afraid I'd mess it up, embarrass myself, that everyone would laugh at me. So I sat down and wrote down all my fears. Using this process, I realized I basically had nothing to fear. And even if something did happen, I knew how to handle the situation. The fear didn't disappear, but I knew how to process it. Fear setting is a really powerful tool. I recommend you try it, and not just once. Use it regularly whenever you face a challenge that evokes fear in you. You'll see it helps you gain a clearer mind and greater courage. Another strategy that can help you overcome the fear of failure is the strategy of small steps. When we face a large, complex, or intimidating goal, it's natural to feel overwhelmed and paralyzed. We don't know where to start, we don't know how to handle it all, so we prefer to do nothing. The solution is to break down that large goal into smaller, manageable steps. Instead of trying to write the whole book at once, write 1 chapter. Instead of trying to lose 20 kilos, lose 1 kilo. Instead of trying to learn fluent English, learn 10 new words. And related to this is the concept of minimum viable action. This means that instead of trying to do something perfectly, do it at least somehow. Instead of spending hours planning and preparing, take at least one small step that moves you forward, even if it's just opening a new document and writing the title, or looking up information online about the topic you want to pursue, or exercising for 5 minutes instead of the planned hour. Because, and remember this, even small progress is better than no progress, and perfection is the enemy of good. If you wait until you have everything perfectly prepared, until you have enough time, energy, or knowledge, you'll probably never get anything done. So, start small. Take the first step, and then the next, and the next, and gradually, step by step, you'll get closer to your goal. Now let's look at one of the most powerful techniques known, visualization. Visualization, or mental training, is the process where you imagine in your mind successfully achieving your goal, overcoming obstacles, how you feel when you succeed. And it's not just some daydreaming, it's a scientifically proven method used by top athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and basically anyone who wants to achieve peak performance. Why does it work? Because our brain, as I mentioned, doesn't distinguish between reality and vivid imagination. When you intensely imagine something, the same areas in your brain are activated as if you were actually doing it. New neural connections are formed, existing ones are strengthened, and your brain literally learns the new behavior. So, how to do it? How to visualize correctly? Find a quiet place where no one will disturb you. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and out. Relax your body and mind, and then start imagining yourself achieving your goal. But not just generally, imagine it in as much detail as possible. If your goal is, for example, to successfully handle a job interview, imagine walking into the room, smiling, shaking hands with the interviewer, confidently answering their questions, feeling relaxed and self-assured. Imagine hearing your voice, seeing their reactions, smelling the coffee on the table. Engage all your senses. The more vivid and detailed your imagination, the stronger its effect will be. And don't forget to visualize overcoming obstacles too. Imagine the interviewer asks you something you don't know. How will you react? How will you handle it? How will you maintain calm and confidence? Visualization helps you prepare for different scenarios and reduce the anxiety you would otherwise feel. You can use visualization in any area of life, in sports, work, relationships, learning new skills. It's like having a secret weapon that helps you train your brain for success. And the more often you visualize, the stronger its effect will be. Another important skill that helps you manage fear and stress is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to be present in the current moment, perceiving your thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without judging them or getting carried away by them. When you are mindful, you can realize that fear is just an emotion, just a thought that comes and goes. It's not you. It's not reality. It's just a signal your brain is sending you, and you can decide how to react to this signal. You can practice mindfulness in various ways, through meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, or simply by consciously focusing on what you are doing right now. For example, when you eat, focus on the taste, smell, and texture of the food. When you walk, notice your steps, the movement of your body, the sounds around you. When you talk to someone, listen attentively without thinking about what you'll say next. Regular practice of mindfulness will help you gain distance from your thoughts and emotions, reduce anxiety and stress, and improve your ability to focus and handle difficult situations. It's like having an inner compass that helps you navigate the stormy waters of life. And finally, let's talk about self-compassion. Self-compassion is the ability to be kind, understanding, and compassionate towards yourself, especially when things don't go well, when you make mistakes, or when you're going through a tough time. It's the opposite of self-criticism, which is, unfortunately, a very common companion to the fear of failure. When something doesn't work out for us, we often blame ourselves, criticize ourselves, tell ourselves we're incompetent, stupid, or weak. But that doesn't help us at all. On the contrary, it deepens our fear and lowers our self-confidence. Self-compassion, on the other hand, allows us to accept our mistakes and failures with kindness and understanding, to realize that we are only human, that we all make mistakes, and that it's okay. How to cultivate self-compassion? Start by noticing your inner dialogue. What words do you use when something doesn't go well for you? What thoughts run through your head? Are they critical, judgmental, or demeaning thoughts? If so, try to consciously change them. Instead of telling yourself, "I'm an idiot," tell yourself, "It happens," or "I'll try differently next time." Imagine if your best friend were in the same situation. What would you tell them? Would you be as critical of them as you are of yourself? Probably not. You would probably encourage them, comfort them, and tell them it doesn't matter, it happens, and they'll manage next time. So why can't you be that kind to yourself? Self-compassion isn't about self-pity or excusing your mistakes. It's about recognizing our humanity, our imperfection, and allowing ourselves to be kind and understanding towards ourselves. And believe me, self-compassion is a much stronger motivator than self-criticism. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we have more desire and courage to try new things, overcome obstacles, and grow. So we've gone through a lot of information, techniques, and strategies. We now know what fear is, how it works, what forms it takes, and how we can start managing it. But now we come to something even deeper, something that will change your perspective on fear forever. Because, and this is key, the fear of failure doesn't have to be your enemy. It can become your ally. your superpower. Now we'll look at how to turn the fear that has held you back for so long into something positive, something that will propel you forward, how to turn it into fuel for your growth. The first step in transforming fear is to change the way we think about it. Most of us perceive fear as something negative, something to get rid of, something that limits us. But what if we started looking at fear differently? What if we started seeing it as a signal? Imagine you're walking down a dark street at night, and suddenly you feel fear. What does that mean? Does it mean you're weak? It means your brain has detected potential danger and is trying to warn you about it. Fear, in this case, is useful. It's a signal telling you, be careful, pay attention, something might happen. And we can perceive the fear of failure in exactly the same way, not as an enemy, but as a messenger, as a signal telling us, hey, you're about to do something important, something that will push you forward, something outside your comfort zone. Next time you're afraid to do something, stop and realize, what am I actually afraid of? And then tell yourself, that's interesting. I feel fear. That means I'm about to do something that's important to me, something that can move me forward. Change that inner dialogue. Instead of, I'm afraid, so I won't do it, tell yourself, I'm afraid, and that's precisely why I'll do it. And now, let's look at how we can use that fear, that energy it evokes in us, to our advantage. Because fear, as we've said, isn't just an emotion. It's also a physiological reaction. When we're afraid, our body prepares for action, for fight or flight. And this preparation includes releasing hormones like adrenaline, which give us energy, increase our focus, and improve our reflexes. And we can use this energy. Instead of letting it paralyze us, we can channel it into what we want to do. We can use it to prepare better, to focus more, to give it our all. Fear can thus become our fuel, our engine, driving us forward. Imagine an athlete before an important match. They feel fear, they feel nervousness, they feel pressure, but they don't avoid it. On the contrary, they use this energy to get even more pumped up, to focus even more, to give their absolute best, and you can do exactly the same. And finally, let's talk about the comfort zone and the learning zone. The comfort zone is the place where we feel safe and comfortable. It's where we do things we know, things we're good at, and where we don't risk failure. But the problem is, in the comfort zone, we don't grow. In the comfort zone, we stagnate. Real growth, real learning, real development happens outside our comfort zone, in the learning zone. And the learning zone is where we face new challenges, where we try new things, where we risk failure. And yes, it's where we feel fear, but it's also where we can learn the most, where we can grow the most, and where we can reach our full potential. So, next time you face the decision whether to stay in your comfort zone or step into the unknown, remember this. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is a signal that you're about to do something important, something that will push you forward, something that will teach you something new, and maybe something that will change your life. And we're at the end. Today we dove deep into the world of the fear of failure. We uncovered its secrets, understood its origins, and learned how to transform it. You now know that fear is not your enemy, but a signal that you're facing something important, something that can push you forward, something that can change you. You have powerful tools in your hands: the growth mindset, fear setting, visualization, mindfulness, self-compassion. Use them, experiment with them, find out what works for you, and most importantly, act. Because the biggest mistake you can make is not to fail. The biggest mistake is not to try. Now it's your turn. What is your biggest fear? And what first small step will you take today to overcome it? Tell us down below in the comments. And if you like this video, if it gave you something valuable, please give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more inspiring and practical videos that will help you live a fuller and braver life. Because life begins beyond the boundaries of your fear. So step out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.